And I like to ask the 1 to 10 question, like, on the scale from 1 to 10, like, tell me, how well do you think the solution fits into the bottleneck of your business? 1 being like, I hate you, I want to get off the call right now. 10 being like, yeah, for sure, this is like the missing element, right? Hey guys, Blake Snodgrass here. Today I'm going to be giving you a look into a private sales coaching session I had with a business owner not too long ago. In this sales coaching session, I was essentially walking through with him A to Z, the whole process, the whole flow of a sales conversation, and helping him through things like how to position his offer, how to handle objections, and whatnot, right? But I'm going to be cutting out the best little clips from this sales coaching session. And if you like stuff like this, if you like education on sales and really making more money, increasing your conversion rates, growing a digital business, then please subscribe, follow. I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff like this in the future. Thanks. But actually, really quick before we dive in, I just realized I might need to give you a little bit of context about this video. 3 things really fast. Number 1, this is me training someone who is trying to sell a software to real estate investors. So just for context, he's selling the software that helps real estate investors maximize their advertising dollars. Number 2, I'm a little sick, so you might hear a little bit of coughing in this video. I apologize about that. Number 3, this is more of a listen instead of watch video. You're going to be seeing a recording of a Zoom call where it's showing my screen and everything's really tiny. You can't really see it. So if anything, you might just want to listen rather than watch this sales training. So hope you enjoy. Hope this brings value to you and your business as you kind of watch me break down the sales process for someone I'm consulting with. Cool. Thanks. This is where you basically like recap back to them like what you've heard them say about the bottleneck. And you're essentially like, okay, so Dave, it sounds like basically the biggest bottleneck in your business right now is like lead flow. But not only that, it's like, how do you squeeze the most juice out of your marketing dollars? Like you have a little bit of lead flow, but what if you could take the same marketing dollars and turn it into 3x the amount of lead flow you have right now and 3x the amount of deal flow? Like that's the issue, right? Our cost per acquisition is too high. We're not leveraging technology as much as, Sean Terry is, right? And the big dogs. And so we need to get to that point. So does that sound correct? Like, is that pretty much the issue? Okay, cool. Well, good news is like we've worked with several dozen other real estate investors that have that exact same problem. And we've implemented systems into their business that straight up solve the problem for them. So listen, this is your strategy call. This is your time. But if you want me to, I can walk into like what that solution looks like. The goal right there is to get them to say like, yeah, man, show me. Yes. You want a temperature check and get that yes every step of the way. Yeah, man, show me. Cool. Right. Okay, cool. Well, this is how we lay it out. And then there's 3 parts to when you go into the pitch. There's 3 parts. There is the high level promise, there's the bridge, and then there's the deliverables. Okay. The deliverables is the techie part, which I advise you not spend too much time on, but that's where you can get in the nitty gritty of how it works. So the high level promise is like, okay, cool. So the end goal right now is to take you from spending $1 to get $3 from there to going to like spending $1 to get $9, right? Our whole goal is to like 3x the efficiency of your marketing dollars, right? And so that's what we do for all of our clients, and that's what we can do for you as well, and kind of maybe elaborate on that a little bit and the high level bird's eye view of like, what it is that you're doing, right? The bridge is where you like bridge it from like, the outcome. Like you basically start the pitch off by telling them like the outcome and the desired outcome. Because remember, you're not pitching to them a tech stack. Like you're not pitching to them a software. Like, please remember that. Yeah. You're not pitching a software. You're pitching a solution. You're pitching an outcome. Right. Yeah. Even more than that, you're pitching an outcome. Right. And so in the first part of the pitch, like talk about the outcome. This is the spot to throw in your first little bit of case study or social proof. Right. And then you bridge it to like, okay. And so the way we accomplish this for most people is the, 5-step acquisition tech, whatever your process is called. Right. Mm-hmm. And then that's where you can kind of roll into like what it looks like and how it operates. But I advise keeping that short and sweet. And not getting too much into the nitty gritty, right? So like I in the past, I've sold like Google Ads, SEO, like that's such a technical service. I could talk about it for 8 hours, right? Yeah. But I'm telling you right now, I have closed SEO client deals without ever talking about the technical part of SEO because I just keep the focus on the outcome. Yep. And this is what the function of it is. and here's how we helped 20 other people do it, and we can help you get started today. Well, I don't need to talk about content and backlinks and all this other crap. It's like, hey, this is the outcome. I've done this hundreds of times. This is what we do. And by the way, here's like the 1, 2, 3 checklist thing of how it works, but we're really focused on the outcome. And so don't spend too much time on the technical stuff. And then solidifying the need. This is where you can kind of temperature check. And I like to ask the question of like, okay, so like, if we implemented all this for you and you like waved the magic wand and fast forwarded 12 months from now, like what would it look like? In other words, like if we started working together and it went perfectly over the next 12 months, what's the outcome you're trying to hit, right? And just get them like future pacing and thinking about that outcome, right? And then you're like, okay, and so, if we were to implement this for you, do you feel like this would solve some of the problems, or if not all the problems we talked about earlier, right? And I like to ask the 1 to 10 question, like, on the scale from 1 to 10, like, tell me, how well do you think the solution fits into the bottleneck of your business? 1 being like, I hate you, I want to get off the call right now. 10 being like, yeah, for sure, this is like the missing element, right? And if they say anything above like 8 or 9, you're like, cool. Well, most things in life are not 10 anyways, right? 8 or 9 is just about as good as it gets. So, and I agree, man. Like, I think this will help you 3x your marketing dollars and 3x your deal flow. That's awesome, man. Any last questions? Because if not, I can tell you about the next steps. Seamless transition into what the next steps are. Talking about next steps is the most like low pressure, seamless way into the close, right?
Yep.
We're not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole here. We want to have the solution for the problem. On a scale from 1 to 10, like how well do you feel like this solution fits into your problem, And give me a 1 to 10, like 1 being, I hate you, don't want to get off the phone. 10 being like, yes, this is the solution. I'm sure of it. Right.
Got it. Cool. Thanks.
And obviously anything 8 or above, you're like, cool. Well, most things in life aren't 10 anyway. Like if I hear 8 or above, I'm like, cool, we are on the right path, And so what I can do is I can tell you about the next steps and what it looks like to get started if you want to, right? I'm not saying, okay, cool. Well, let me tell you about the price, right? They're going to ask about the price. They're going to ask about it. And you want them to ask about it. So after solidifying the need, temperature check, button down the temperature check. They're saying yes. They're saying 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. I agree with you. Like they had the idea that it was the perfect fit, and now you're agreeing with them. So like, yeah, I agree with you. And what I could do right now is kind of roll into the next steps and what it looks like to get started with us, right? At that point, they're either going to ask a question like an objection, or most likely they're going to say like, okay, well, what's the cost of all of this, right? And that is when you can say the thing that I always say on every single call before I ever talk about price, which is, yeah, sure, cool. I can roll into price really quick and what the investment looks like. I love using the word investment, by the way. But before I roll into the investment, other than the price, which we're about to discuss, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to move forward today? Any red flags or anything I haven't talked about? Right. That question has made me a lot of money. Other than price, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to move forward today? Okay. What that question does is it allows you to identify any non-price related objections before you move into the price.
Yep.
Because if you roll straight into the price and then at the end of the call, they're not moving forward and they have an objection.
Yep.
You don't know if the objection at the end of the call is truly about price or if it's about XYZ thing that you haven't covered. So other than price, is there any reason why you wouldn't move forward today? They bring up an objection, you handle it, and then you ask the question again. And you keep making that loop until they're like, no, I'm good. Like all my questions are answered. This sounds great. Okay, cool. Well, let me talk about the investment. So the investment is a $3,000 setup fee and $600 a month to maintain the software. You state it simply, you state it confidently, you do not hesitate. Boom, right? $3,000 setup fee for the entire tech stack, and then $600 a month for the software maintenance, right? Or whatever verbiage you want to say, And then you can also roll into the value stack of like what that gets you, So you will be getting all of our proven scripts for text messages and emails, which we had our copywriter custom make for you. And we spent about $10,000 on all that copywriting. If you're doing like a slide with the value stack, you can put like $10,000 value next to it. Just like you see in webinars, right? You can have the value stack of this valued at this valued at this. And so, for all that, again, it's a $3,000 setup fee and it's $600 a month to maintain the software for you. And then you wait and just see what they say, right? Now, if there's any objections about, the pricing, we've already talked about some sales mechanisms you can use. So I don't know if you should put this before or after the price objection, because, there's going to be some pushback, right? Like 1 out of 20 people will be like, cool, man, sounds good, let's roll.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, like, expect it. Most of the time, they're going to be like, oh, okay. And that may be a good time to be like, now listen, there are some things we can do. One thing we do to incentivize people who sign up on this first call is we kind of call it our fast action incentive. And we're only doing this for about the first 50 people that sign up because, quite frankly, once we have hundreds of users, this won't be viable for us and we'll probably start charging for this. One thing we're doing for the first 50 people who sign up is, as I just told you, we have the acquisition, entire tech stack system, etc. But most people, need help with the disposition process as well. And so we've actually created everything I've told you. There's entire another part to it with the disposition process and just like drill into what that looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing for the first 50 people is we're actually waiving that fee to get that set up, however you want to word it. But basically, like, hey, this is a whole other thing that pretty soon we're going to charge another $3,000 setup fee for and another $600 a month. But we're giving that for free for the first like 50 people who sign up, right?
Yep.
So basically, like, you're getting everything in the value stack doubled for free is essentially what you're getting. And so you can kind of roll into that a little bit and just like, you're just lathering on value, right?
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. And you're like, do you feel like, again, I know you told me earlier, you're like 9 out of 10 thinking this is the right solution. And now we're pretty much doubling that, right? If I was able to do that for you, and this is the perfect spot for if I could, would you statement.
Mm-hmm.
I know Brad
Mm-hmm.
does this as well. If I could do that for you, if I could go ahead and basically double the value, give you the disposition process as well, free of charge. If I could do that, would you move forward today?
Yep.
And then like anything okay or better, any statement as okay or better, or like whatever, any
Yep.
positive affirmation
Qualified.
statement is
Yep.
like, okay, cool. Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Let me tell you about what the next steps are. And what we're going to do is we'll take the initial payment. And then another few things we need to accomplish on this phone call. We have a few requirements. And I love doing this, like saying, hey, the next steps, we have several requirements, but those requirements are like actually bonuses. So it's like, okay, cool. So the next steps are we'll go ahead and handle the initial payment. And we have a few requirements as you get started up. So requirement number 1 is you need to schedule your complimentary onboarding call with myself and Brandon. And requirement number 2 is we need to get your mailing address because we're going to send you a special gift for being on the team. Like, just go into like what the next steps are and get them a little pumped up. And so like in their mind, you're framing it as like requirements, but really it's like a bunch of cool next steps and bonuses, right?
Yeah, I love it.
And so after you roll through that, what the next steps are, you're like, does that sound good? And you're like, yeah, cool, man. That sounds good. All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. What's your billing address? I always start with billing address. It's like such a low friction way to slip right into the actual close in the order form, right?
Yep.
And so just like next steps, get some positive affirmation. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me pull up this form here. Let's go ahead and start with your billing address. Boom, just like slip right into it, right?
Love it.
So that's like the general flow of my kind of general outline that I use for agency services. I also use for coaching and everything like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'd be really
I
good for
love
yours too.
this.
The more you drill down during the discovery part, the better the rest of it will go. You know how I told you, like, in the past, like, I've literally closed SEO deals without ever even talking about SEO. Like, that
Yep.
whole thing, like closing deals of this without really even needing to get into the technical details, that is made more and more possible by digging deeper and deeper into the discovery phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we
Mm-hmm.
used to have this phrase back when I ran a sales team for my consulting business years ago, which is like, if they cry, they buy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
just a silly way to say it, like, the deeper you can dig into their
Mm-hmm.
pain points. And it's like, people aren't just buying from like us. I tell my sales team, like, people aren't just buying lead generation for you. Like, people aren't buying the tech, like, they're
Software.
buying an outcome. Right.
Yep.
And this is where I teach people about like the 6 core human needs, some of those
Yep.
being like security
Yep.
and significance and things like that. Right. So like, a big pain point, like never worrying about where your next deal is going to come from. Like, how much of a freaking relief is that for some people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, every single day, these investors stress about where the next deal is going to come from. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like lifting that 600-pound weight off them, right? The deeper you can dig into that pain point and other pain points, easier the rest of the pitch will go. The scripts and outlines and stuff are just there to make sure you hit certain checkpoints, right?
Right. Right.
Like, we need to be, and honestly, like, as long as those checkpoints are hit, it kind of doesn't matter like the words that are used or whatever, but like hitting the checkpoints of like pain and like helping them have the light bulb moment that there is a better way, something that they're not doing,
Hmm.
that you have that solution and you've helped lots of other people implement it. Also, it's just a lot about like tonality and pacing, like especially with what you're doing, like you're not desperate for sales. You're the doctor in the room, right? Like I always tell agency owners this, like whenever they're selling, like you got to understand, like you're the doctor in the room. You're the one with the answers. Like you're the one whose time is valuable. You know, like a doctor doesn't walk into the room and see you and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming to the hospital. Like I'm super excited. You're the first patient I've had today. Thank you so much. Like, no, they're like, so I heard you have a few issues going on. Why don't you go ahead and tell me
Yep.
what's going on. I'll see if I can
Oh,
help you. And so when I'm on the phone with them, like, hey, you know, my job here is to consult with you and like diagnose the situation. Similar to the medical field, they say prescription without diagnosis is malpractice, right? And so I'm not going to
mhm.
sit here and offer you some cookie cutter solution. I want to properly analyze the situation, get to know your business a little bit, diagnose the bottlenecks and what might be wrong. And then if needed, I might be able to prescribe a solution, but I don't want to just sit here and prescribe you medication
Mm,
without knowing the full details, right?
that was
So, first of all, let's go ahead and dive in and let me know a little bit about how your real estate business is working right now. And if and only if I feel like our processes and our system can fill a void that's missing, then we can go ahead and talk about that. But right now, just tell me about your business. Like, how's it operating and what do you
Tell me
feel like
about your
is the
business.
challenge
What
right
you have.
now?
I love it.
All right, man, if you don't mind, I need a 7-minute break before my next meeting
Dude,
and
go
go
for it.
pound some cough
After,
syrup or something.
can you check in to see if that recording is done buffering? A lot of the stuff that you said today, I'm quite literally going to script this out.